welcome to episode 199 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast called Building Music with an amazing guest who has an incredible story. Do you ever wonder how people get to where they are in life, or even how you've gotten to where you are in life? Life is an adventure, and it's not always linear, and it's not always what we think it will be. But sometimes what happens, what is created, is far better than anything we could have thought of or assumed if we were just trying to plan it all out. Well, how's that for a teaser? Be back in a second with more about my amazing guest.
Today's guest, Joseph Brown.
Hey, welcome back. Check out this first sentence. The sound of my the sound of me coughing, I guess. No, okay. The sounds of my guests work fill the walls and rafters of many churches across the country on any given Sunday. Who can say that? That's amazing. Joseph Brown has dedicated his career to building custom pipe organs. A craftsman as well as a businessman, Joseph learned his trade from John Nordlie, the founder of JFNordlie Company, and the very skilled craftspeople in the organ shop. By proceeding through each of the skills gradually, encouraging his development, John took Joseph under his wing, sharing his wisdom and helping to pave the way for Joseph to prosper in this very challenging craft. I'm excited to explore the world of organs with and so much else with Joseph Brown. Please welcome to the Awkwardly Awesome Studios, Joseph Brown. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, Jason.
So, people's journeys and stories utterly fascinate me. If I had known you, as a kid in Sioux Falls and asked you what you were interested in, what would you have said at 7 or 8?
7 or 8, I was interested in baseball and my family, my cousins. I spent a lot of time hanging out with my cousins in the Sioux Falls, Del Rapids, Trent, South Dakota area, and yeah, family, sports, music.
So how many cousins did you have living fairly close by?
Well, my grandparents on my mother's side had 9 kids, and my grandparents on my father's side had 7 kids. And at the last count, I think we had 54 first cousins on mom's side and somewhere around 36 on my dad's side. So still counting, but they were really our friends when we were growing up. We had, elementary school friends growing up, but we were really very close with our cousins. And so that's kind of what I thought about most of the time, is when I was going to get together with my cousins again.
So that's a unique experience to many people to have so much fa- family family right around you. What do you love about growing up with so much family?
Well, um, it was never really like hard or difficult to know what you were going to be doing next week or all summer. It was like we're going to be getting together with our cousins. There's one family we spent every weekend either up at their house or they were down at our house. Sometimes our parents would, my parents would take all the boys and their parents would take all the girls, and so it was just a great way to grow up, um, because you always knew that you could count on those people. And truthfully, um, that that trust and comfort of being around people who are really familiar to you has continued on from that time for me. I've got two of my cousins working with me at my shop creating new instruments right now, and I couldn't hope for a better situation because I know that I can trust them completely and they can trust me, and excellent working relationship.
Um, tr- 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 trust and comfort. Joseph, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I'm still here.
Oh, cool. Um, so so trust and comfort. You love that feeling, but you haven't just stuck close to home in your life. How did you get interested in foreign languages?
Well, that again came from family. I had an uncle who, right out of college, joined the army and was stationed in Germany. He met a young lady over there, and when they started their family, they had a son who was my age, who would come home every summer. And since we were the same age, we were always together. And this boy would teach me German, and I would teach him English, and we'd figure out a way to communicate for about 6 weeks every year. And when it came time for me to decide in middle school, high school, which one of the second language tracks I was going to follow, it was an easy decision. I was going to learn German so that I could speak with my foreign cousin a little bit easier. And that kind of led to some other opportunities. When I was a sophomore, I was asked by my teacher if I'd be interested in applying for a scholarship, um, to do an exchange year abroad. And
When you were a sophomore in high school.
yes,
That's young.
yeah. Well, I guess so. My parents supported the decision, and my father really helped me with the applications. And my cousin was over the moon about it because he had always only ever visited us here. I'd never been over there. And so, yeah, when I was 15, I got on a plane and went to Germany for a year.
How close did you live to your cousin when you were in Germany?
Um, Actually, not very close. It's funny. I didn't actually end up seeing him at all that year that I was there. I got
You
so
didn't end up seeing him at all?
I didn't see him once. And it's, it's part of a story, but he had some he had some illness in his family and had to actually move to South Dakota the year that I was in Germany. So,
What?
so yeah, he wound up going to school in Del Rapids while I was living over in Munich. So
So,
I guess you can't plan this stuff.
wow. So you're a junior in high school, right?
Yeah.
in your Munich, in a different country, different language, not around your family. How do you adapt to that change?
Um, well, the the scholarship that I was awarded allowed for me to take part in an exchange program. So there was an established organization called Youth for Understanding, YFU, that puts on um, these exchange programs in many different countries, and they make arrangements with the schools, with host families, and they also host several different uh, seminars and educational opportunities throughout the year. And so that organization, Youth for Understanding, did a great job of preparing us for our year. There was a 1 month long intensive language training course that we took um, that really helped. They prepare you for um, the experience of being in a new place. And the biggest lesson I learned there was if you're in a new place and you're kind of vulnerable, the best thing you can do is to just try your hardest. The people who are there will see that you're trying. And I was just incredibly lucky. I met some wonderful families and educators that I still have um, contact with today. And preparing for that adversity was just keeping an open mind, I think, not trying to worry about what might happen and taking things one day at a time.
So trying your hardest, keeping an open mind, and taking things one day at a time.
The other thing that was very, very helpful for me in integrating in Germany was I had a host family that wouldn't speak any English with me. They could all speak English since the end of World War II. They've been learning English in their classrooms from the age of like 7 or 8. So they could all get by, but I was there to learn English and my family, or to learn German, excuse me. And my family supported that and took it to heart. And the first few months were brutal, but about 4 or 5 months in, I was speaking like a German, and I'm still very proud that when I go over there or visit, or when I speak with my wife, who I met over there, um, I'm still doing it at a level that feels like it's authentic. It feels like it's like I learned what I set out to learn. So
It's a big deal to become fluent in another language to feel you can speak it often. It's a big deal.
yeah, it gives you another way of thinking. Just um, when you think about the way people form their thoughts through language, um, German is such a precise language, and there's opportunities in the language for you to express yourself in ways that don't necessarily exist in other languages. So you can build words in German to describe whatever it is you're thinking about, or whatever you need to describe.
So
And
so
having
you
having that
can
has helped me out.
so you can describe some things when you're thinking about them in German in a more efficient way, effective way than you could describe them with the English language.
Yeah, sometimes they just have a different way of building vocabulary. So many times in my business, we may have to make a tool or make a fixture for creating a certain piece, in the project, and that tool is just it's a tool. In German, I could say I could make up a word for that specific tool, and everyone would know precisely what it is. So that's one thing I like about learning German and becoming fluent in it.
So we're going to flow around through different parts of your journey. So your business is making organs, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you make anything besides organs?
From time to time, we'll take on other smaller projects. We've specialized for a number of years in making mission style furniture. It was always kind of an interest of our founder, John Nordlie, who's inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright and
Hmm.
by Gustav Stickley. And he was able
Hmm.
to translate that interest into kind of a small side business, where if a customer wants to have something that's really unique, we can put it together for them. We've done it for local small businesses, um, and it's something I really kind of enjoy. Um, Pipe organs are very complicated, uh, complex machines that have to that rely on a lot of small systems and things to be successful. And so from time to time, it's enjoyable to take a break from all that pressure and create something that's a little bit different that might just create joy in someone's home or, in a small business. So yeah, we do some other side projects.
I've sat in your chairs on many occasions in a restaurant named Haskets, and I can attest that they're very comfortable and very wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, yeah, we built Haskett's chairs here about 2 years ago. Chairs are a unique beast. There's a lot of different parts, and they're difficult to pull off really well and consistently. And yeah, that was a fun job. I love being able to go in there too and see my work in public.
So, we're getting into kind of how hard it is to appreciate fully what another person does. Like when
Mm.
I sit in your chairs in the Haskets, I know I feel comfortable and it feels great and it looks beautiful, but but you just said even a chair is a complex piece of furniture, and I don't know the complexity of building a chair, let alone creating an organ.
Well, we're kind of suited to that purpose at our shop. Um, One thing that I really love about the the pipe organ business in particular is every one of them is different. Um, we try to build our instruments to fit into the surroundings that they're going to be in, and we hope that they'll be there for many years. And so, while many of the interior systems of those instruments are the same, the external aspect and their function might not always be the same. And so there's always these new challenges that are coming up, and that keeps the job from getting boring. And that translates well into furniture making because the kind of pieces that we're interested in making and that our customers like are special one-off things. They're not something that we take out of a warehouse someplace. And so, yeah, that's a good point you make about complexity.
Along with what you're saying, so when I think of organs, I mean, I think of the ones in churches, but I also think of the standardized. Oh, I guess that's electric piano. That's not even an organ, but that like a Yamaha electric piano. But what you're building has no like you can't say, well, we just built one pipe organ and then the next one will be exactly like it.
That's right. So when you're comparing pipe organs or organs uh, as an instrument, the thing that makes a pipe organ different from, like you said, the Yamaha keyboard is sound generation. Our instruments create sound by forcing air up into a pipe, which creates a sound wave. The electronic organs create sound or generate sound through speakers, like you would on a stereo system or another type. And there's lots to be said about the pros and cons of either system, but that's what make our instruments a little bit, or I guess, different from electronic instruments, is that we use metal and wood pipes to create the sounds that you're hearing in the organ.
Can you say a little bit more about how each organ you're commissioned to do presents unique challenges or unique puzzles to solve? Joseph, 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 can you hear me? Speaking of unique puzzles to solve, I'm hoping Joseph comes back soon here. Joseph? Hmm. I think he's he'll try and come back in. Hopefully, um, life is interesting. Is constantly moving. Sometimes there's technical difficulties in life. And we need to figure them out or do our best to figure them out. And this hasn't happened in the podcast for a long time where someone for whatever reason had to drop the podcast and come back in. And and I don't know what's going on at the moment for Joseph, but I trust he's coming back in and he's back in. Hey Joseph, so I was just asking you a question about, can you say more about the unique challenges each pipe organ presents?
Well, the pipe organ design and construction process is a marathon.
It's a marathon.
Yeah, so before anything is ever ordered or built, there are extensive discussions that happen with your customer. We want to make sure that the instrument that we're providing is going to serve them uh, for their needs. And different religious denominations use the pipe organ in different ways. And so we have an in-depth conversation with, usually it's the music director of the church. Sometimes they'll form an organ committee. Many times we'll be speaking with the lay leadership of the church or the clergy to find out truly what their needs are. Um, they need to be realistic about budgets because pipe organs are complicated and expensive pieces to make. And so there are many discussions that we have over pricing options and continuing care to make sure that before we ever cut into a piece of wood, this is something that the congregation can truly support and that they want. Once we've decided what the organ is going to sound like, then we start designing what the visual aspect will look like, and it just kind of goes from there. I'm working on an instrument for a church up in the Twin Cities area right now that we began the conversation around their instrument in 2022, and we'll deliver it in June of 2025 if everything goes according to schedule. And so it's well over a 3-year project for that church. I've got other projects that we've been talking to the churches for 5 years, and sometimes that's just how long it takes for a church to raise the money to to pay for everything. And so that's the one thing that I would say is pipe organ building and buying and delivery is a marathon process. It's nothing that can be rushed. And if we give it the time that it needs, the instrument can be reliable and last many generations. The the uh, the, the thing that we see very often is that the people involved in the buying of the organ or in the creation of the organ don't have the necessary patience to get it to that point where it has a really uh, long service life. And so that's something that we as builders keep in mind. We don't rush anything. Um, we do move swiftly once all those decisions are made, but we really try to make sure that we have all of the information present before we start making anything.
In the modern world, and we are blessed with being able to go out and buy stuff fairly quickly, go to Target or Walmart and get stuff.
Yeah.
How do you must have to really manage expectations. I would imagine some clients come to you with high hopes of getting an organ in like 6 months or something.
That's happened. And it's all about communication and being honest. Um, in addition to building new instruments, I also maintain a lot of instruments in our region. And from time to time, I'm asked to help a church remove a pipe organ. And so if this small organ that I have in inventory could work for your small church and fits your needs, yes, there's a possibility that we could put it in there in 2 to 3 months. But generally speaking, most of these projects are easily a 10-month to a 2-year process, depending on how big they are.
So we're going to try to make a tie-in. Are you ready?
For it.
So how did it sounds like it took patience to learn a new language or to go from in high school you have been learning German in the classroom, but suddenly you're learning a new language because you need to speak it to get by, to succeed in school, to communicate with your family. So how did the patience of that year of immersion and challenge equip you to do what you're doing now?
Um, I think having the good fortune to have the teachers that I had and meet the people that I had gave me confidence. Um, and I really have to attribute the success that our shop is having now to others. Um, I have very excellent influences in our pipe organ shop who, without necessarily saying it, always gave me the feeling like I could accomplish anything that I decided to do. And so it's it's really a combination of good luck and good training and trying to remain positive through the challenges that we all go through. And I've just been fortunate to have patient masters and a loving support system in my family. And yeah, I really think that that's kind of what has allowed me to have the story that I've got because it's I don't want to talk myself up or anything, but I've got a pretty cool story. I think
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
I like my life,
That's a
and
the
it's cool. It's
um
mostly luck.
I mean l- like a good fortune is part of people's stories, but also it takes work. It takes courage. It took courage to go your junior year. It takes courage to envision to start on talking to a church knowing that this project might not be completed for 5 years. And but speaking of masters, how did you first meet John Nordlie?
Well, I grew up across the street from the Nordlie family, so they've been our family neighbors since the '50s, actually. Um, I grew up on my great grandparents' homestead. It was eventually um, passed on to my parents, and so um, John Nordlie, the founder of our company, he's got a cool story about he remembers going up to visit Grandma Lacey at the homestead for cookies because she was a grandma type when he was a kid. And I've got memories of running down across the street to visit Grandma Nordlie to get baked goods. And she was an excellent cook. And so when I finished um, my time in college, I was looking for something interesting to do. Um, and my sister and my father encouraged me to go and talk to John. And I was always aware of the organ shop because John's father, Grandpa Nordley, um, he would make all the neighbor kids toys for Christmas. So, um, and my mother would say, "Well, this came out of from Grandpa Nordley. They built it in their shop while they're doing the organs." And the shop where it stands today, it's like right on the way. It's right along the path that we would take when we'd bike to the pool, to Frank Olson Pool in Sioux Falls.
Hmm.
So it's also right next to a Dairy Queen. So as kids, we were biking past there all the time. Um, there's like a little dip between the parking lot from Dairy Queen and the parking lot to John Nordlie's, and it was a perfect little ramp for a BMX bike.
Nice.
And so we were on that corner all the time, all summer, and every now and again you'd ride by and you'd peek in the door, and they're working on some glorious thing. And so when I got out of college, I went over
But
to the
but
shop,
but
which
as
is
a kid, you wouldn't say you've ever toured the organ shop.
no, not as such. No.
So when you got out of college,
Yeah, that's when I really became aware of what John and his crew were doing there. Um, Actually, I was working on a woodworking project for myself and for my father. We were building kind of an island. I was building out an apartment in a building on my folks' property, and I had created this bench top out of tongue and groove flooring, and I had it all glued together on a piece of substrate, and it was nice and rigid and flat. And I started sanding into it, and I got, maybe 1 square foot done, and I thought, this is going to take me forever. What do I do? And that's when my dad said, well, you should go talk to John Nordlie. I bet he's got a tool for that. So I called John. He said, well, are there any nails in it? I said, no, the nails are all below the surface. I said, okay. Well, you can meet me. I'll meet you at the shop on Saturday. You bring it over and we'll run it through the time saver, which is a great big uh, panel sander. It's got a belt that runs through, and in about 30 seconds, he did what it would have taken me, you know, 3 or 4 days to sand, using the tools that I had at the time. And while I was there, he kind of showed me the project they were working on. At the time, that was their magnum opus, or their largest, most ambitious instrument to date. Um, it's at home in Kerner
it's at home where?
style architecture to it, with Roman arches, and it's been painted in this creamy white enamel with black walnut accents, with curly burl features in the console. Um, it's featured on our website if you're interested in looking, www.jfnordlie.com. And just to think that someone could produce this by hand in a shop here in Sioux Falls, what just blew my mind at the time. And I finished up my bar top and moved into my apartment, and I couldn't stop thinking about what John and the guys were doing over at the shop. And here's another good story for you. I went over there, and I talked to John, and I just said, since I was in here this weekend, I haven't been able to stop thinking about what you guys do here, and I want to ask you for a job. I told him that I could measure within a 16th of an inch, which in precision instrument building is not that close of a tolerance. I was pretty proud of that, though, being a hobbyist. And he looked at me and he said, well, you're going to learn how to measure much tighter than that. And he shook my hand, and I came on the next Monday and joined the shop, and that's now been 23 years. So it was just a great way to start a career, because he just always said yes. He always helped me out. He was patient with me when I made mistakes, and excited when I had successes, and so it's a great place to be for a young guy interested in
So,
woodworking.
so what was that first year working at Nordlie, like learning a new language of working with your hands and measuring much more precisely than a 16th of an inch?
Well, the shop foreman there, who was a brother of John's, Paul Nordlie, told me when I came on, he said, "Actually going to hold
He
this."
said what?
And so he
What
said that
what what did
he wanted
Paul
me to be a
Nordlie what did Paul Nordlie say?
he said he wanted me to be a clamp eyes, which essentially means you don't make many decisions your first year at the shop. You are supposed to help the guy who's in front of you and watch what he's doing so that when you are asked, you know what what needs to be done. So that first year was a lot of just learning. Um, learning about what types of materials are suitable for what types of purposes, because not all woods can be used for every application. So you learn a lot about uh, different kinds of leather in the pipe organ business. You learn a lot about different kinds of glues. Um, there's a metalworking aspect. We join woods and metals and leathers together to fulfill certain purposes. And so it was like going back to school in many ways. And it was great for me because I loved going to school. And so the first year was kind of an eye opener. Here I thought, oh, I've been through college, I know everything. No, no, you don't know anything. So we spent about 2 months. The first 2 months I worked there, we were finishing that instrument for Kernersville, and then I went on the road to install it, and we were down there for about 2 weeks, just setting the instrument up and making all the connections for all the mechanical linkages, um, working with the local electrician to uh, get the organ connected and get it ready for what we in the business call a voicing process. So um, all of this work, getting the structure and the mechanical uh, components assembled and in place, is really just to serve um, the pipe work. And on a new instrument, after all of that structure and mechanism is put in, the pipes go in, and a very specialized group of people come in and they listen to every single pipe at different areas throughout the sanctuary or the room where the pipe is going to be. And they make minute changes to it so that it can sound as good as it possibly can. And I didn't get in on that process the first year I worked for John. They weren't trusting my ears with that just yet. But I worked my way up the task ladder. Started out in the wood shop. Um, once they felt that I was confident enough to take on most of the woodworking projects, they moved me into the metal shop. I learned how to weld, how to braze, how to turn metal on a lathe, how to use a CNC mill, um, how to solder, how to shape metal for the different purposes that we've got. And after the metal shop, I moved into the voicing room, where I learned how to manipulate the pipes to get the sounds that we want, and to work with our head voicer to get the organs to sound the way that they should. And then about, I suppose 6 years ago, John Nordlie announced his intention that he wanted to retire, and that we had to come up with a uh, a plan for the future of the shop, and none of the gentlemen who were kind of ahead of me in line really expressed an interest in continuing the business, and I didn't want to work anywhere else or with any other people, and so I had a long discussion with my wife about it, and she thought that I could do it, and so we started a transition process, and then I moved from the shop into the office and learned from John the business side of it, really, um, how to price out the different parts of the organ and um, how to speak with customers about their needs. And so I've really been through every position there at the shop, and yeah, it's taken a little while, but it's been just wonderful.
So you say you've been with the shop 23 years.
Well,
How many?
I started at the shop about 23 years ago. Uh, there were some periods where I went back to get some more schooling, where I wasn't working there full time. There were some periods where I was working on my own when things were slow at the shop, but my relationship with Nordlie started 23 years ago, and I came back on full time in 2015.
How many people work in the shop?
Um, there are 5 of us in the shop
Oh.
right now, and I'm looking to increase. I we've been fortunate in securing work for the future, and I'm ready to kind of train up the next generation. Um, so yeah, you know any good young musicians who are good with power tools?
Um. Yeah, I'll be thinking about it, but also like it's interesting because when you started in the shop, you didn't necessarily have that many skills. You got trained and apprenticed over many years. So that's a question. How will you determine who's going to be patient enough to be trainable versus someone who wouldn't really be interested for the long haul?
Well, that's a good question. So far, I've been recruiting from the ranks of my family, um, and I don't really put out ads for these positions, mostly because I worry that if I put an ad out there, I'm going to have to go through hundreds of people to find
Mm,
the right person.
mm.
And um, the way I understand it, back when John was running the business, that's kind of how it worked for him too. People would find out about it, and they'd come to him, and they would show really that they were interested in making this. I've
Making
been
the
putting my
way.
feelers out there, making a career out of organ building, woodworking.
Because someone has to really be not only have an aptitude in that direction, but really be interested.
Well, it's a challenge, sure, Jason. Um, the person I described to you just a minute ago, a musician who's good with power tools, who will have to be able to travel. I mean, we've kind of saturated the market here in Sioux Falls for where we can install pipe organs. Um, you got to be someone who is willing to learn, and it's difficult to find people who don't already know everything because there's so much information out there. that you can get at your fingertips from the internet. Really, we've got specific procedures for how we build our instruments. And
Hmm.
so the person's also got to be able to take direction. And
Hmm.
humility isn't something that is in, you know, supply in the workforce. It just is a challenge. And so
Hmm.
I'm hoping that I'll be able to use my experience and the experience of the gentlemen that have been working with me. When that person comes along, I'll recognize them. And
Hmm.
then I'll try to do the same thing that John did for me, is patience, encourage their growth, pay them, and make it a career that is fulfilling. Because I think in the end, that's all anybody really wants, is to do work that matters.
Ja- um, John, so as you think of doing what, giving the get paying for what the gift John gave to you, he really did set you up for a career that you're passionate about.
John helped me a lot.
So we've been talking about the process. What is it like the first time you get to hear one of the organs you and your team have created in a church full of people?
Well, it's very special. Most church uh, are ready for a celebration at that point. When the organ is finally ready, when we say that it's done, um, many times they'll schedule what they call a dedication recital,
Mm,
and they'll invite um, a master organist, someone who can really perform, to come and play selections on the instrument. And that artist will usually come in for about a week and get to know the instrument. And we like to be there too, to make sure that everything is working as it should. Um, we hear the instruments quite a bit before we ever allow them to schedule that dedication recital, because
because John, Joseph, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating, and then we're having this technical stuff. We're having this technical stuff. Hopefully, Joseph comes back. Some sometimes it's difficult to get get a story that there's complications like understanding someone. Maybe they have a speech impediment. Here we go. Okay, so we moved the. So you, so you're back. You're back.
sorry about that.
Um, cool. So the day of the recital celebration is a very exciting day.
Yes,
Sounds
yes.
like.
Um, Usually, if the dedication takes place in a church, which most of them do, um, there's a service for the organ. Um, when we dedicated the organ that we have at the cathedral in New Ulm, the bishop was there and he blessed it with holy water and prayed that the organ would make beautiful music for many years. And we got to meet a lot of the congregation members, and it's a really big deal for them. And so it is very exciting for us to get to that point. In many cases, after 5 years or so of planning, um,
Oh,
it's a joyous occasion. We can
oh,
take a little
cool.
vacation.
Yeah, yeah, I bet a well-earned vacation. Very well earned. I love to ask all my guests about the concept of doing doing your imperfect best. To me, when I do my imperfect best, it means I envision the best I want for my life and to contribute to the world. Then I go forward, and imperfections inevitably come up, mistakes happen, obstacles, and being stopped by them. I try to learn from them and be inspired by them and move back towards my best. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Joseph Brown?
Um, I think right now it has to do with being a leader, um, and kind of guiding my guys through the shop. I'm I never really went to school to be a business owner, and so I make mistakes and um, try to foster an environment of frank openness, along with being understanding or forgiving of everyone's flaws,
Hmm.
because we all do things that are awkward sometimes, or whatever. That's my imperfect best, is bringing these different amazing people together to achieve this goal of creating an instrument that's going to last generations. um that's, I guess, my imperfect best, because we stumble along the way, but we're still a team at the end of the day. And so I think that's my version of imperfect best. The other thing, the other thing that comes to mind when you say imperfect best is, like, imperfections in the materials that I work with.
Hmm.
So there'll be many times when I'm working through a pile of lumber to create a part for the organ. And it might be a part that is visible, like the casework, or it might be a part that's invisible inside. But there are times when you're working through this material and you'll notice one piece of the wood has got a unique grain pattern or grain
Hmm.
form. And you start out by cutting it into a similar width as all the other pieces, and then you get to the point where you're making it the same thickness as all the other pieces, and then from there you might take it off to create a joint so that you can join it to another piece. And there's probably hundreds of these pieces in this pile of wood that you're working, and you keep noticing that weird one that's got those unique grains in it, and you think, well, maybe I'll put that someplace where other people can see it. And that's like an imperfect best. It's like you see it and you realize, you know, that might not be the piece that's going to make this look really uniform, but it does look really cool. It's kind of like the idea of the stone that the builder rejected became the cornerstone,
Hmm.
because it's like, I remember seeing this when it was a rough plank, and then I remember seeing it while it was um, ripped to width and through all these processes, and eventually it becomes something that I know exactly where it is in the instrument, and every time I go to visit it, I'll go and I'll see that piece, and I'll think about the whole process of building it, and how that one little thing stuck out for me. So that's my imperfect best. That's one example.
That's magnificent. That's magnificent. Wow. I'm glad I asked. Last question. You on your website you refer to the photo gallery of your organs as opus. What does the word opus mean to you?
Well, opus means work. So as a pronoun, it means the work. It is a work. And so for me, opus is it's a way of identifying um, a particular project. And it's common for pipe organ builders to have an opus list, and we decided to continue in that tradition on our website. And we keep records of every new instrument that we build, and they've all got their own opus number. Right now, we're working on opus 63 for Roseville, Minnesota.
Wow. 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 I could just keep asking you question after
Opus
question.
60, opus 64 will go to Philadelphia.
Have any opuses gone internationally yet?
John has 2 instruments in Japan. That's before my time at the shop.
Wow. Wow.
But if anybody out there is interested, I'll travel. I'll go wherever the business
Wonderful.
is.
Gosh. I just think of Sunday mornings, whenever the organs play, your efforts, John's efforts, the whole shop's efforts, they become music in so many. It's just beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for by being on and sharing just incredible stories with us of a world that's intricate and beautiful in a world that most of us don't see. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It was my pleasure.
Wow, it's just fascinating. I'm going into this. I know nothing about building organs except that there was an organ shop in town and Joseph worked for them and a few other things. But to spend an hour hearing about just how these works of art that create music for countless people and create worship and help create sacred space. It's incredible and yes, there were a few technical difficulties, and we all come across technical difficulties in life and challenges. And the question is, are we going to let technical difficulties be our reason to stop our inspiration to continue? Thanks so much for tuning in today. Please leave comments. I love comments and tune into another episode of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast next week. And thanks for being you.